Have researchers discovered a map to the true location of the Ark of the Covenant? How would this discovery connect with the Bible's predictions regarding the end times? Find out today on A View from the Wall.
Join I Am a Watchman Ministries Managing Editor Joe Kerr with co-host Dylan Burrows, bringing you a fascinating discussion regarding the importance of Bible prophecy and Christian living today as it relates to our responsibility as believers to be watchmen. This is A View from the Wall.
Welcome to A View from the Wall. I'm Dylan Burrows, and my co-host Joe is currently on tour in Israel and appreciates your prayers today. However, we have a special guest with you. His name is Jim Barfield, director of the Copper Scroll Project. And let me tell you a little bit about his story. Back in 1952, an artifact known as the Copper Scroll was discovered in the caves of Qumran in Israel. This scroll described the location of the Ark of the Covenant, the Tent of Meeting, as well as many of the original artifacts and treasures from the First Temple period. What if these treasures could be found today? Jim Barfield, director of the Copper Scroll Project, believes he has decoded the locations in the Copper Scroll and has long pursued access to the scroll's locations in Israel. Today we'll talk about the significance of these developments on A View from the Wall. Jim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. I've heard good things about you.
Well, thanks so much. And I know about a year ago, we were privileged to have author Shelley Neese on the program, and she discussed the book, The Copper Scroll Project, which features your story in it. But for those who may have missed it, start us off for a moment to share an overview of the Copper Scroll and your connection with it.
Well, the Copper Scroll, let's start a little further back.
Sure.
Jerusalem was under siege by the Babylonians. And Qumran was also one of the places that were attacked by the Babylonians. Well, they almost lost Qumran. Now, Qumran is where all these treasures are located. Qumran was the home of the prophets. Guys, listen to me. It was the home of the prophets, and it was the home of the treasury for a very large portion of the temple treasures. That's how all this came about. And Jeremiah was the lead prophet at the time. You have to remember Zechariah, Haggai, Ezekiel, Daniel, all these prophets were contemporaries. Most people don't realize that, but they all were living at the same time, and that they were trying to hide these things. Well, what they did was they came up with an idea, well, let's hide them. And guys, we're talking tons and tons of silver, gold, and implements from the temple and tabernacle of Moses. They were having to hide those things and taking them out of the treasury that is at Qumran. That's where everything is at. And what they did was they took some copper sheets, 3 of them, about 3 feet. Each one was about 2.5 feet long and about a foot wide. And they wrote all the instructions at the request and command of Jeremiah. 5 men wrote the Copper Scroll, putting amazing amounts of treasures, identifications, and locations on this Copper Scroll. So what it is, the Copper Scroll is a verbal treasure map. And guys, History Channel just did a show on. They called me a treasure hunter. I'm not. I am not a treasure hunter. What I am is a Bible student and a Bible historian. I love this stuff. And that's how I became interested in the Copper Scroll, is because my interest in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Copper Scroll is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. They compiled all this data on that copper plate, because that copper plate, they knew it had to last at least 70 years, because Jeremiah said, guys, people of Jerusalem and Judea, you're going into captivity. Don't pray about it. Don't worry about it. Just load your stuff and go. Because you're going to spend 70 years in captivity. And by golly, they did. They spent 70 years in captivity, and 2 young men. It even says it on a book called the Mech HaMelech, or the Treatise of the Temple Vessels. It says that 5 men wrote the Copper Scroll: Shemur HaLevi, Hezekiah, Zedekiah. Now listen, Haggai the prophet, and Zechariah, the son of Iddo the prophet. So those are 2 men that you know who they are. They've got books in the Bible, and they were part of this hiding of these treasures. And they were young men, probably age of bar mitzvah in Israel is 13. And they were probably around that age because those two young men, I think they used young men, promising and intelligent young men, so that they would last the full 70 years of captivity. And they would, by the time they got back, they would still be, probably in their 80s, 90s, somewhere in there. And the people of Qumran lived, historically, they lived 120 years because of their lifestyle and their diets. They lived biblically kosher diets, and they were very, very healthy people. So that's the purpose of the Copper Scroll. That's the people who wrote it. And that's how the Copper Scroll, the history of the Copper Scroll came about.
No, that's a fascinating story, and it's become a big deal. You've been featured on the History Channel recently, as you've mentioned. I want to, before we go to our break, to describe a little bit about what the treasures include. There's a passage, for example, in Ezra 1 that talks about the different items that came back from Cyrus of Persia when they rebuilt the temple. It talks about 30 gold platters, 1,000 silver platters, and much more. And this is just some of it. What are some of the items besides the Ark of the Covenant that are mentioned in the Copper Scroll?
Well, the majority of the items on the Copper Scroll are ingots. Now, you got to understand these ingots are not just little, you're talking 75-pound ingots. And the way that it's been described to me is they would melt this gold or silver into like discs. And those discs would be approximately an inch thick and about 12 inches around, maybe a little bigger.
Goodness. Because
you got to remember, silver and gold are very dense. And they would weigh about 75 pounds. And in one location number 2 on the Copper Scroll, they've got 900 gold, highly polished gold, or very pure gold, 900 ingots, 75-pound ingots, called a talent, 900 talents of gold in one location. But the items that you just mentioned in Ezra only scratches the surface. And there's other documents that tell what is that. The Copper Scroll gives several times it says 900 talents of gold and silver. Does it mean 900 silver talents and 900 gold talents? I don't know. But the most important items listed on the Copper Scroll is what they call the treasures of the house. In Hebrew, that would be the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash is the temple.
Yes.
A lot of your scholars are going to argue with me, and I don't care. They can argue till heck freezes over. This was all done at the time of Jeremiah, and these are all First Temple treasures. The treasures of the house are the table of showbread, altar of incense, and all the things that you would find in the holy place. And very possibly, if you believe what Second Maccabees says about Jeremiah hiding these items, they said that they were in the area of Qumran and they hid all these items in a buried cave. And in that buried cave is not only the Ark of the Covenant, according to these Second Maccabees, but on the Copper Scroll it doesn't say Ark of the Covenant. It says the treasures of the house. Well, the treasures of the house aren't gold and silver. It's the items, the most valuable, incredible items would be the items that Moses and the people that during Moses' time frame that they put together and hid, and it's described the same way on the Copper Scroll as it is in Second Maccabees. The location, it describes the cave, and it gives incredible detail on how to identify the cave, and that's how I found these things.
Well, I hope you're enjoying this fascinating discussion. We'll be right back after this break for more on the Copper Scroll on A View from the Wall.
From I Am a Watchman Ministries, here's today's I Am a Watchman Minute.
Let me share a thought about patience. Many are familiar with the story of Nehemiah, how he was an official in the Persian court, received permission to leave his post and help Hebrews in Jerusalem rebuild, and with God's blessing, completed the Great Wall project in just 52 days. Now Nehemiah's burden to leave his post is noted in chapter 1, after which he prayed and waited for God to move. Chapter 2 notes that 4 months later, God presented an open door to speak with the king and request permission to leave. It took twice as long for permission to be secured than it did to build the wall. God's timing is not our timing, but it is always perfect. Like Nehemiah, be patient, wait on the Lord, follow His leading, walk with and learn from other watchmen, and you will be blessed.
Be bold, be faithful, be a watchman. IamAwatchman.com.
Welcome back to A View from the Wall. We're talking with Jim Barfield, director of the Copper Scroll Project, about the locations of the temple treasures and their significance today. The Copper Scroll was discovered in the caves of Qumran, which is now an Israeli national park, but the actual Copper Scroll, or the map, is in Jordan now. So, Jim, as we continue our discussion, talk a little bit about how the politics and the nationalities influence any discoveries or research when it comes to the Copper Scroll.
Well, let me tell you this, to start this off, we actually began an excavation in 2009 at Qumran. I didn't have to pay a penny. I didn't have to fill out one piece of paper. Once I showed my research to the head of the Antiquities Authority, Shuka Dorfman, Yitzhak Magen and Yuval Peleg were sitting there with me, and they were the two top men over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The older gentleman, Yitzhak Magen, was the top guy for archaeology in those two areas. But the head of the Antiquities Authority over all of Israel was Shuka Dorfman, and he is the one that set up a meeting with me and the guys from the ADCA, the Archaeological Department of the Civil Administration, which is West Bank and Gaza. Now, they set it up. Yuval Peleg actually went out there with me a few days ahead of time. We checked everything out, and he asked me where we should dig, and I showed him. That's all I had to do. They showed up at the location at Qumran with a team of diggers and all the implements, everything we needed to do, and we started an excavation. But they stopped us, and they got a phone call. He got a phone call. Yuval Peleg got a phone call, and he looked at me and walked away from the dig, and you could tell his countenance changed. What happens is this. There were some guys here in the United States started a big fuss over it, and I don't want to go into that. But what happens is, if anything is found in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip, it was under a very strict set of rules by the Oslo Accords established years ago during the Clinton administration. Well, the Oslo Accords have been a pain in the bottom of everyone, and they did not want anything that is pre-Solomon time frame. They didn't want anything exposed and shown to the world. They wanted to keep that secret, because if we would have found something that day, and we almost did, I think. If we would have found something, then there would have been a big court battle in the world court over who owns it, the Palestinians, the Jordanians, or the Israelis. And guys, this belongs to Israel. No other country, not the United States, no one else, just to Israel. That's the politics we're up against. However, the things are changing, and whenever you're ready, we'll talk about that. But are there any other questions? Because that's the big holdup right now, is not just the concern over the safety of these vessels, it's the ownership of the vessels that are also at stake here as well.
Well, continue that discussion. Tell us about how things are changing now and the impact it could have on your research.
It's changing in an amazing way. President Trump has really kicked some doors open for Israel. And there is some amazing things that are happening. One being the capital of Israel is now legally identified as Jerusalem. The Gaza Strip, they are planning, as we speak, they are planning to annex what is called the Jordan Valley. And that is a strip of land right along the west side of the Jordan, all the way from just about all the way up to the Sea of Galilee. And it incorporates or includes Qumran. If they annex that, that's going to take all this Oslo Accord nastiness out of the way, and it's going to open it up for a simpler excavation at Qumran. So it's the biblical stuff that we've been looking for. ladies and gentlemen, if this is truly going to happen, this is one of the big signs of the coming of the Messiah. There's 4 old documents that talk about the finding of these treasures, and each one of them say it will be the time of the restoration of Israel. It will be the reunification of Israel, and it will also, there was 2 of them that says it will be the time of the coming of the Messiah. So if we find these items and everything happens the way we suspect, it could be an incredible event for all of us.
Well, that's a great insight, because for many of our listeners, they are familiar with the end times tribulation period, where it talks about a future temple that will be rebuilt in the first half of the tribulation. And when we talk about the temple being rebuilt, we also start talking about what will be in the temple. And you're talking about finding the first temple treasures. There certainly could be some prophetic connection with this as well, couldn't there?
Oh, it's huge prophetic. And now think of this too. If in fact the items are all in the cave that I've identified, or the area that I've identified, if they're in there, and if those items include the ashes of the red heifer, and I'm sure they will, and it also says in 2 Maccabees that tabernacle itself is hidden inside of that cave.
Wow.
If they have that tabernacle, they could set it up. And guys, people think this is an Antichrist situation. No, it's not. That's ridiculous. It is not about the Antichrist. It's about the coming of the Messiah. That's
right.
What it's about. And these people are so afraid of the Antichrist. Why? The book says that we win. It may be 3.5 years, it may be 7 years of tough times. But guys, it's coming. At some point, if you believe Scripture, it's coming. And what they're doing, what the Jewish people are doing, is not an evil thing. It's a blessing. It is an incredible blessing that is going to come about. And it will usher in the time of the Messiah.
Well, those who follow Bible prophecy are probably already aware that simply the establishment of modern Israel is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. You have the restoration of the people to the land, speaking the language of Hebrew once again. And here you have a discussion that we're taking today about the copper scroll and the possibility of finding first temple treasures so that the temple can be rebuilt just as the scriptures predict. This is an amazing story. And I just want to throw out one other thing before we go to break here. You think about it, we have 2 Chronicles 35:3, where King Josiah said to the Levites to put the ark in the house of Solomon, which Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, built. It shall no longer be a burden on your shoulders. And a lot of people think that's not just being put in the temple because it was already there, that it was being put in some secret location. Now, does that have some kind of significance with the copper scroll as well?
Absolutely, it does. Because King Josiah Jeremiah was a young boy when King Josiah was king.
Right.
Jeremiah was, and if you remember, at the very first of Jeremiah, it talks about that God tells him, don't be afraid. That don't say you're a little boy. He was anointed to be a prophet of God. And Josiah hid these items. He knew what was happening. He hid them, and Jeremiah was part of that. His dad, Jeremiah's dad, was actually the high priest at the time of Josiah, and he was receiving what is called the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. So they were all involved in this. And if it's true that there is a tunnel all the way from Jerusalem all the way out to Qumran, they could have used that tunnel to take these items, the tabernacle, the altar of incense, table of showbread, and the Ark of the Covenant, and hidden them out at Qumran easily. So that is something that people, especially Bible scholars, need to take into consideration.
Well, this is an amazing discussion. We'll be back with more after this break at A View from the Wall. Stick with us.
No one goes to an adventure movie and leaves before the climactic ending, but that's exactly what many people do with the Bible.
Author and animator Todd Hampson.
Revelation is the most neglected book of the Bible, but it's the one book that explicitly says you will be blessed if you read it and study its words. My new book, The Non-Prophet's Guide to the Book of Revelation, features original artwork, including comic strips, easy-to-understand charts, illustrations, infographics, and more. The Non-Prophet's Guide to the Book of Revelation is literally fun to read, and it will help you to understand all of the key features of the Bible's final book.
Todd produces comically illustrated books and products that help readers consider the claims of Bible prophecy in order to face today with a sense of joy, courage, clarity, and purpose. The Non-Prophet's Guide to the Book of Revelation is his latest, and it's available in the bookstore at IamAWatchman.com.
The Non-Prophet's Guide to the Book of Revelation. It's the easiest way to understand the hardest book of the Bible.
Welcome back to A View from the Wall. We've been talking with Jim Barfield, director of the Copper Scroll Project, and I don't think that people who are listening fully understand the significance of this discussion. I think to myself, when I look in the Bible and read about the Ark of the Covenant, what was in the Ark of the Covenant? We're talking about the 10 Commandments, the very words that God gave Moses on Mount Sinai. How significant would that be if that discovery were to be made public today?
It would be earth-shaking. I'm telling you. It'd be like 9/11 on steroids, because you remember all of the United States shut down. I think the same thing would happen. I had a rabbi talk to me about this, and he was a senior rabbi in Israel, and he was really excited about the discovery. And he said, "Do you know what this means to my people?" I said, "Of course." I said, "It means the same thing to my people." And he said, "Jim, what you have found," he said, "is the dowry of the coming bride." Now, that's coming from a rabbi.
Yes.
The dowry for the coming bride.
Oh, my
but
goodness.
when he said that, it all clicked in my head. And I'm going to stop there.
Well, what an amazing story. There's so much more that we're not going to be able to get to in our program. How can people get in touch with you and your ministry?
The best way is go to the Copper Scroll Project website, copperscrollproject.com, all one word, all lowercase. And I would love to come to speak at your congregation. And guys, we don't worry about money. We are trying desperately to get the word out to the Christians, and especially to my Israeli brothers. We want them to know what's potentially on the horizon. It's huge. It's important that I come speak to them and let them know.
Yes, we want to help people connect with you in any way we can. And we want to encourage you as well. If you didn't catch earlier, we talked about Shelley Neese has written about this in the Copper Scroll Project book that you can find. So you can go to our website and get some more information on that as well. But we like to end each program with a word of challenge directly to our Watchmen community. And Jim, I know you've encountered a lot of skepticism or criticism on this project over the years, and Watchmen face a skeptical world as well. People don't like to be reminded that this world is not our home, and the job of a watchman is to spread the gospel to people who sometimes don't want to hear it. So for someone who's faced your own share of criticism, what words of encouragement do you have for our watchmen today?
I don't work for them. I work for somebody in a much higher position. We are working for someone much higher, much more important than all these critics. And there are a lot of critics, but I promise you, multiply that by 100, and that's how many supporters we've got. People just seem to gravitate towards this. They seem to instinctively know that what I'm telling them is true. So I encourage them just to stay the course, don't give up, and know that you can hear the footsteps of the Messiah. If you sit outside tonight, he's coming. And everybody needs to be prepared for that.
Yes, well, just that ongoing reminder that Jesus is coming back any moment, and we need to be prepared. And the signs are clear. If we look, we can see so many things coming together at this moment in history. And we want you to be encouraged. We want you to be equipped. We want you to evangelize those around you. And Jim, we want to thank you for being with us. Again, the Copper Scroll Project at copperscrollproject.com. As we wrap up today, I just want to encourage you to visit us at IamAWatchman.com. You can download this program, connect with us. Thank you for being with us, and join us here next time on A View from the Wall.
A View from the Wall, in association with I Am a Watchman Ministries, exists to equip a worldwide audience with biblical truth, sharing it with others, and being prepared for Christ's imminent return. The team seeks to encourage, inspire, and equip watchmen for such a time as this. For information about the ministry and upcoming events, visit IamAWatchman.com. A View from the Wall is made possible by the team of dedicated pastors, editors, and the many contributors of I Am a Watchman Ministries. To support our efforts, give online at IamAWatchman.com and click on the Donate button. Thanks for listening, and join us again next time on A View from the Wall.